I'm Karen, the oldest child.
Well, we're all the Nelsons, so there are four of the five of us, and I'm Alan the next.
Deborah.
And Frederic.
And we knew when we were in Oneonta, New York, where our father was teaching at Hartwood College, that we were going to St. Cloud, Minnesota. And there was a lab school at St. Cloud, Minnesota called Riverview. So we knew the summer before we arrived that we would be going to another lab school. And that summer of 1947, I was sauntering along on East Street in Oneonta when a car stopped and the driver said, "Do you know where Bugby School is?" That was the lab school for Oneonta State Teachers College. And I said, yes, I knew where it was, and I'd be happy to hop in the car and give directions. So I hopped in their car, and this was a Miss Moscript and her teacher friends who had driven to the east to find out how another lab school worked. And when we came to St. Cloud, Minnesota, Riverview, there was Miss Moscript, my 6th grade teacher. So I had already met her, and she introduced me. We came a little bit late that fall to Riverview, and we were introduced to our classmates.
So each one of us was the new kid, the new child in the class.
6th grade.
4th grade.
1st grade.
Only 4 years of age, and not yet in kindergarten.
And we might add that Alan's Riverview friends still call him the new boy.
So we could talk about the building that
Right.
I remember.
Right, the Riverview. So I guess I was probably here the longest because Fred doesn't know if he started here in 1st grade or 2nd grade.
First or
But he
second,
went to Garfield for the early years, as our younger brother did too. So I really, except for the kindergarten room, I spent my 1st through 9th grade in all of these rooms, and it was just a wonderful experience. One thing we all remember is the tunnels to the other buildings. So we would have our gym classes and swimming in Eastman Hall, and we would go through the tunnel to go there. Another memory that most of us have is that once Stewart Hall was built, and it might have been a different building for my older siblings, but once Stewart Hall was built, and I got up into the, I don't know, I think it was built and finished in 53 or so. But especially our 7th grade teacher, Miss Cadwell, would trot us over to the basement of Stewart Hall. So we would go through the tunnel to Stewart Hall. And I think we had, at that time, we had to go, originally the tunnel went to the library, the old library, which was situated right next here. But we'd go there and then take another tunnel over to Stewart Hall, and then go away to the end of Stewart Hall, and down in the basement was the AV room. So that's where we all learned how to take notes in the dark. All we had was a light of the film, and Miss Cadwell had a very special way of having us take notes. So I think probably most movies, and they were at that time all movies, that came into St. Cloud State for the various departments, she trotted us over there to watch those movies. So any other comments about the note-taking?
Well, I was going to say, I remember Riverview School, the building itself, and if you were here your whole time, you would be in every room, because up through 6th grade, we had one teacher per class, and then in junior high school, which is 7th and 8th and 9th, we would move around to various classrooms. For example, Miss Perry taught history and Latin in one of the basement rooms. And also vivid in my memory is the old library, which was demolished after Stewart Hall was finished. And I'm pretty sure all the books were then moved into a library within Stewart Hall. Later, I think there's another library that was built. But at that time, I was in Miss Cadwell's room, which overlooked the
Which is-
old library.
For me, it was this room.
Oh, okay, this very
It was
room.
this very
Okay,
room,
yes,
right.
this very room, okay. So you have to imagine that right outside this room is the library, and it's being demolished, and there is a crane with a big wrecking ball. And we would look out the window, and our teacher would say, "Don't look out the window, those men know what they're doing." Crash! An entire wall would fall down, shake the building, and we were expected to keep our eyes on the blackboard. Our teachers at that time were tough.
Which we, in our later years, appreciated because it helped us all do well in high school and college, but.
And we should talk a little bit more about Miss Cadwell because she was such a character. When we would come in from our luncheon recess, she would say, go outside, I don't want you to be walking encyclopedias."
But she also kept a dictionary. In fact, it may be the same stand there. A Webster's dictionary. So whenever we didn't know a word, she would send somebody to the dictionary, which I now appreciate, though I didn't want to be the one that had to go to the dictionary at the time. And she taught geography and was a specialist in South America, which was really advanced for the time. How many other students anywhere got an entire semester maybe devoted to South America? So we had to learn all the capitals. And I'll just tell you one more story about her. She also wanted us to understand that the world was a globe, and that you couldn't think of just the Mercator map. You had to think of the polar regions and so forth. And she especially objected to anybody saying up north or down south. So at some point, one of the pupils said down south. She took a piece of chalk, held it in her hand, and dropped it, and it shattered on the floor. And she said, "That's down." Which is actually very bad, because if you can get away from the habit of thinking up and down rather than compass directions, and you've made a lot of progress.
So what year was it when your family moved here?
1947.
47.
So that was our first year in school. And another Miss Cadwell story is she lost her grade book, or perhaps someone took it. And she asked each of us to write down the grades that we had received up to that point in our year. And I had achieved an A-, but she decided it was really a B+. That annoyed me.
So, semi-related to the building itself is that we were not supervised except when we were in the classroom. So we had an hour for lunch, and then during lunchtime, my girlfriends and I, we would sit on the front sidewalk just beyond the stairs, and we would play jacks all the time. During the wintertime, when the weather was cold, we would, after we had lunch in the basement of the library, which was our cafeteria, then we would go over to Eastman Hall and we would just play around in the gyms. Now, I think there were maybe like college students who were there, maybe paid to supervise us, but they certainly didn't interfere with what we were doing. We just played on all the equipment, and I think the boys played basketball in what was this thing called Douglas State University gym at that time.
Sometimes we would walk down the riverbank, which we were not supposed to do, but we did it anyway. Or there was a ravine on the other side of Eastman Hall. We used to play in that.
And the girls would go over to Stewart Hall and go up and down the elevator, which was a new experience for us, pushing a button and going up to the second floor, and seeing all those big college students.
One incident that happened, this is also associated with the library, well, just two memories of the library. One was that we had our cafeteria in the library. For at lunchtime we'd go to the cafeteria, and there was always cooked meals, and by German, people of German extraction. So we had lots of sauerkraut rutabagas, tough winter vegetable. But the other ones that we were talking about, of people being unsupervised, one of my classmates, I think, went up into the attic of the old library before it was demolished and stepped through the ceiling. And fortunately, I mean, she easily could have been killed, easily. But fortunately, she ended up with a leg on either side of a joist. And she was really scratched up as a result of that. But I think the adults in charge were so relieved that she hadn't actually been killed. Because there was about a 20-foot drop into a stairwell. And you could see the ceiling where the hole was that she had fallen through. So that was a product of our being unsupervised.
Well, that library for the children and the junior high school students was really, it was a library that the student teachers were using and we children were using, so we could check out books. And the librarian at the time set up some competition, and Helen Thielen and I were kind of paired in trying to see who could read the most books, and we stooped to reading picture books.
But the library was also there was a library for the college, but one section of it was for children.
Lab school.
The lab school.
And then the campus just was on this side of First Avenue. So across the street there were kind of dirt
fields.
ball lots, lots. And I don't remember playing so much on the first one, but at the other end, which would have been on the 2nd Street and 2nd Avenue and 2nd Street, pardon me, got that wrong, 7th Street and 2nd Avenue, there were softball diamonds and, we played a lot of gym classes we had there. And I know that there were tennis courts over by the dorm, which is Shoemaker, over by Shoemaker out in that area. There were.
We played there during the lunch hour.
During the lunch hour, if we weren't playing jacks.
Again, unsupervised,
Right,
playing softball.
Right.
Was Shoemaker built while you were in school?
No, it was there already.
Oh,
it was
there.
there.
So during one of our noontime softball games, one of the boys, I'm not sure what happened, he collided and was actually knocked out.
Wow.
And luckily there were enough adults somewhere around that kind of gathered and took care of the issue, but
That's where I received one of the early shocks of my life, when I discovered that the pitcher was supposed to make the batter miss. And up to that time, I thought that baseball or softball was a game of cooperation, in which you're supposed to cooperate to make the ball go as far as possible, and when the batter hit it.
One memory that just popped into my mind was in about 1953, our mother started teaching here too. She had her master's in education from Harvard at age 22. And so she must have been, we had an old Dodge. I don't know what year the Dodge was.
37.
37 Dodge. And I remember, so she was leaving the college and we were outside playing. She was driving down 7th Street and she saw me and she honked the horn. Well, the horn stuck. And so there was this horn, but she could wave out the window.
Have we mentioned that our father taught chemistry
Right.
in the science department there? So.
Right. And he
Well-
eventually became head of the math and science
And
department.
what were their names again?
Arthur Nelson and Ruth Nelson.
Okay.
And then Stewart Hall was also the theater with a stage, and so we had a chance to perform on that stage with Miss Marble's music class. And Alan was in a play, I Remember Mama, played the part of
Arnie, a little boy. I had about 4 lines. Took me a long time to memorize it. I finally did.
So,
That would have been a big, for a young child, that would have been a big thing because
Oh, it was.
Stuart Hall was so cute.
Yeah, and they got to come out at the end, take a bow with all the.
so I think at that time St. Cloud State had 3 plays on stage at what is now Ritchie Auditorium. And they always had a big, I think in the spring, a big musical, but they would, they would have at least 3 big productions each year.
Right. Well, I sang in HMS Pinafore.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
I have some since.
But we were talking about the music program, so maybe we should just talk a little bit about Miss Marvel.
And I came in 6th grade, so we did not have music at Bugby in Oneonta, New York. So I came in knowing a little bit about whole notes and half notes and quarter notes, but it was a very sophisticated music program for you.
For those who are interested in music.
And her name, was it Lorene?
I think maybe.
Lorene Marvel.
Right.
She was very beloved. Everybody loved her. And at one time she was going to retire or transfer or maybe teach full-time in the campus, and there was an appeal to her to stay. She did stay.
Right,
And
so she was very good.
yeah,
Very
people loved her.
So she just taught music, or did she teach other things?
Just
Music. Music.
I'm guessing she was the music education teacher
I
for the
think so.
students, for the college students, as was Mr. Waugh, a teacher of the orchestra. So he had a little junior high orchestra in which I played the violin poorly.
But I played the flute poorly. You played the.
Oh, I played the baritone horn very poorly. One of the great moments of my life was when I stopped. But Dick Skewis was
Yeah, excellent.
really excellent
Violinist.
violinist, one of our classmates. And he ended up teaching music in Faribault, so that was...
He was Mr.
Riverview got him
Watt's-
on his way.
Mr. Waugh's star.
So you weren't the Von Trapp family?
No.
But we should then talk about the arts too. So we had
Oh, that's right.
Miss Adams, was
Mrs.
it?
Adams was
Miss
Mrs.
Adams.
Right.
She was Miss Adams at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't she?
Yes, I think so.
Was she?
No, but she had a daughter, so I think she
Oh,
was Mrs. Adams,
oh,
right? Yeah,
okay.
I remember.
In those
I
days.
think her name was Abigail. Was it
Okay.
Abigail Adams? I think
Okay.
she
So
had a daughter.
several things that I remember is that, well, for Christmas she had, when I was here, she made a very large paper mache creche. And so every December it'd go out on the front of the Riverview. And these figures would, the wise men are that big. Camels and shepherds. It was marvelous. But I remember every year we kind of had to repaint some of the stuff. Re-paper mache part of it with a marvelous display.
Wow.
And then I think each of us had one one project we did was to make crayons, colored crayons on a piece of paper, and you put black over it, and then you scratch.
That's her picture in there, right?
And so you
Yeah.
make modern art.
And she married Mr. Mines, whose wife had died.
Right.
And Mr. Mines was our English teacher. And I remember there was a lot of discussion and the distribution of a play, but it was never performed. But he did do a journalism project, and we contributed to a newspaper, and they are here. Some of the examples of that newspaper are here in this notebook.
Right, so,
Are any of the articles in the newspaper the ones that you wrote?
I'm going to have to look. There are no names under the
Uh-huh.
article, so we did not type it. Incidentally, industrial arts was another of our electives. The girls took industrial arts and art, and was there a home ec component? Or was it just a sewing in the art department?
right.
So I still have a breadboard pig that I made in industrial arts.
All right, I still have a bookshelf, a very special slanted bookshelf, so the books would stay in place that I made.
And I remember a print component, so that we learned something about.
I'm sure that print was in
printing
industrial
press.
arts or art, I couldn't remember. But we did make a block print.
Oh.
With a little
Oh, we did a little
That was in the art.
block print.
Right.
But my memory is distinct that in industrial arts, we learned to do printing. We learned to set type, and we printed off. There was a printing press
Right.
there.
Wow.
And they were warned What? You were warned
I'm sorry, I don't.
not to drop the box with all the
Oh,
letters in it.
right.
Because you'd have to spend the rest
Oh, no,
of the
that's
year
right.
sorting the letters into those lead letters into the trays.
That was called pieing the type.
What's it called?
Pie, P-I-E, I think.
Huh?
If you drop the case, then you had to sort them all out again.
All the P's.
Which would take days, I think.
So that's right, that's maybe the expression, mind your P's and Q's.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when I came in sixth grade, I'm wondering if the principal's name was Mr. Gunnarsson, and if he was a math teacher. I would have to check the archive to see if that's true, but I have a memory of going out to the edge of the property here and trying to figure out what the distance was of Mississippi River by using trigonometry, by using a small triangle and trying to estimate what it would need to go across the river.
Well, talking about across the river, Miss Cadwell always took us over to Munsinger Park.
Huh?
And then theoretically, we were supposed to learn the names of the different trees and flowers and whatever. Now, Karen ended up having biology in college. She got more
and
out of it than I did, but.
we learned kind of the common name of the flower, and she explained a little bit about that each of these flowers had a Latin name. And if we looked at the signage, we would see the Latin name and the common name. So we learned canna lily and cornflower and...
And what's the Latin name of cantaloupe?
So much for education.
Did you walk across the bridge?
Yes,
Yes,
we talk
yeah.
across.
Back in the winter, backwards.
And that was when the 10th Street Bridge was still a metal girder bridge. And it was the footpath, the pedestrian lane was lined with wood slats. So as you walked over, you could actually see the river beneath your feet between
Between the slats.
And I remember riding a bicycle over it, it would go thump, 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 it had a very characteristic sound. And another connection between the Riverview School and the bridge was that in the winter, the ice would back up against the bridge, and in order to prevent the bridge from being torn away by the ice, they would dynamite the ice. And so we would be sitting in class, like a classroom just like this, and you would hear boom. And again, the teachers would say, now keep your eye on the blackboard.
And I too remember, but I don't know that my siblings remember, and I don't know how many years this happened, but it did happen while I was here, is that when they blasted out the ice, then some brave college students would grease themselves and swim across the river.
The winter swim.
And Alan had a friend who
fell through the
yeah,
ice.
who lived right over across from like where Clemens Rose Gardens is.
Yeah.
And you
Right.
could take shortcuts
It
home.
would be a shortcut if he could walk across the ice, which he did, but one time he fell through and he survived. I don't know the full story of it, but
Right.
it was,
Did he continue taking that shortcut?
I think his parents had a talk with him. Another story that I don't want to miss, which is that we would sometimes play basketball. I was never any good at basketball, but I wanted to be. So the boys would play basketball in Eastman Hall past the proper hour. And one day we tried to get back through the tunnel, but the door was locked. We couldn't get back into Riverside.
Riverview,
Riverview. Riverview.
California.
So we walked around the building, and I don't know if there's still a fire escape on the outside,
Yeah.
but there used to be. So we climbed up the fire escape, and we found that the window was open, and we opened the window. It was a sash window. Climbed through and into a little cubicle, and then we opened the door, and there was Miss Perry. Waiting for us.
And what did she say?
Well, she had a look that could bore right through your, to the back of your head. So, we didn't pay any, we weren't punished for it, but we were certainly put on notice that we shouldn't try that again.
Again, this college offered us Talahi Lodge as a place for
Oh, yeah,
parties on
right.
a Friday night. So I have a distinct memory of a faculty member and his wife being the chaperones and allowing us to play spin the bottle.
No, huh?
Which was spinning the bottle and this couple would go disappear and then come back into view.
So Talahi Lodge was across
You're
the
killing
river.
Log cabin.
There's Riverside Park, and then kind of where Riverside Park now ends, that was, beyond that was university property. Whether the university still owns it, I don't know. But there was a large,
The log cabin.
but it was bigger than a cabin. I mean, it was
Yeah.
maybe as big as this room, and it had a fire pit and a fire pit or pit in the middle of it, and we would go with our families sometimes, like there would be maybe a faculty association meeting or something, and then we would have a picnic over there. And so we would go over there, so that was
A venue.
That was the venue. That was, yeah, I was actually part of the university.
Yeah, was it torn down or burned down?
It was torn down.
Torn
I
down.
think it was torn down.
And then there were large granite steps over there that went down to the Mississippi River. I think maybe remnants of those are still
I think so.
there, but
That was WPA work. They used to have bridges over to the island, footbridges over the island under WPA.
yeah, Beaver. over the-
Beaver Islands, yeah.
Right.
But they were washed out by the time we got here.
Right, right. Do you want to can we just take a little pause here?
Sure, Sure. Yeah, that's good.
Scratch up and we've talked about it.
Okay. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about the demographics of Riverview and how much that really has meant to us through all our lives. So each class or grade level was probably about, I would imagine, maybe 25 students. That'd be probably a good ballpark number. And the mix of students was interesting because a lot of faculty children attended Riverview, but it was also kind of a neighborhood school. There were just people who lived in this part of St. Cloud and down the hill, I mean this whole kind of area. There were children from all of those areas, and there were also a lot of farm children, and we don't really know how they got to school because we didn't have buses. We lived on 15th Avenue South, and we would walk. Well, we would ride with our dad to school, but then walk home or go over to the chemistry department and hook a ride with dad when he was going home. But we really don't know. Many of our friends were people who, for instance, out on County Road 8, there were farms on County Road 8, and a lot of those children also attended Riverview, but we don't know anything about how they got here, what the transportation. But something unique is that many of these friends have become lifelong friends. I mean, you go to school 9 or 10 years with the same people, and they do become lifelong friends. So we are all in contact with various of our friends that we met here.
And I live in the San Francisco Bay Area now. I live in Berkeley, California. And there are 4 of us who, for about the last 12 years, have been getting together every year with our spouses. And so there are a little group of 8 people who gather, and we reminisce, we talk about our teachers. Most of our stories are about conflicts and so forth, but I do want to emphasize that the education we got here, I think, was really terrific. Superb. And I really personally benefited. So I didn't want to go by thinking that all the teachers were characters. I mean, they're all characters in their own way, but in addition to having their eccentricities, which we reminisce about, they were superb.
So we received an education, but always at the back of the classroom were students
Oh.
from the college observing our behavior. And I remember the generosity that we had sometimes one student teacher per child to do spelling words. We often would have a spelling test at the end of the week with Mr. Mainz's class, and there was a coach for each student because they were invisible. They never interfered with the presentation being given by the teacher, but they were taking notes too.
Were they in all of your classes? Were they in all of your classes?
Not in every class, but
And not all the time.
They could show up in any particular class that we gave. But didn't they give it? We had some sections taught by
Right.
Absolutely,
Yes,
that's
by,
student teachers.
student teachers from the college.
And I particularly remember in physical education, we almost always had whoever a gym teacher was, but then 2 or 3 student teachers who were,
PE students.
who were physical education majors and who would be working with us on our various skills.
The rings. Climbing the rope, and touching the ceiling.
So we had our day life, but then there was a kind of evening opportunities, probably for the most part, that either the neighborhood families or the faculty families and their children would go to Eastman Hall for various presentations. And one of them was a birder who showed slides of the birds, and he could whistle the bird songs. Another one was the Harlem Globetrotters, who played against the St. Cloud basketball team, and travel logs with slides, against slides.
And we had still pictures of being shown, and then I was astounded by hearing waterfalls, and it was amazing. And toward the end of the program, I realized he had this great big electronic device behind him. He'd be turning dials and have probably a wire recorder of the waterfalls and water, so I felt a little slightly deceived. It was an interesting evening, and a nice travel log.
You mentioned the wire recorder. I remember that Mr. Mainz, who taught 9th grade, I believe, also taught journalism. That was our section of and he taught English, I believe. And he had a wire recorder, and this was the predecessor of the tape recorder. And I was so mystified by the fact that this spool of wire would go through, and then you could play it back. This was, I think it was a World War II development. But it was part of our journalism course, so we would learn to have a tape recorded interview with somebody. We would stage an interview. So I thought we were really at the height of sophistication and technology as a result of that, even though it was quickly replaced.
And every once in a while, we would meet someone who had been a student teacher. Walter Pike came back into my life later when I was at the University of Minnesota as a librarian. And he had been a student teacher under Miss Marvel and also knew about our newspaper. So he must have been there with Mr. Mainz as well.
So we just have lots of fond memories, and they keep bubbling back, things that we probably haven't thought about for many, many years, but it sure provided a rich background for us. So I'm the delinquent one. I have my master's degree, but I'm sitting amidst 3 doctorates. So PhD, MD. so obviously, it gave us a good
Start.
background. And it just popped in my mind too. Probably one of the most appreciated courses that I have had was Miss Perry's Latin class, because I think it really helped to teach us grammar, understanding language, and meanings of words, definitions of words, and I still use the skills I learned from here, how to figure out what this word might mean by looking at the different Latin roots or parts of the word, and how it worked. And then Alan became a linguist to a great extent.
Well, I remember how important Latin was to me. I never really got terribly good at Latin, though I have to use read Latin. It's always been a mystery to me, but I remember that until I took Latin, I had no idea what people were talking about when they said this was a noun or a verb. When it's your mother tongue, a word is a word, and it's just something you just know. You don't even have to think about or analyze. But just discovering that there were words that were classified as nouns or adjectives, adverbs, verbs, participles, and so forth. Even though it took a little bit of effort to understand what these were, really made me understand English better and other languages as well. So,
Do you still use Latin?
I do.
Right,
I still
so-
use Latin. Yes,
His
I do.
research, he does lots
Yeah,
of research
yeah.
on Middle English and
Right.
early English documents, so
Yes.
he
Yes.
puts that to good use.
And we can thank St. Cloud State for renovating Riverview. It's a wonderful building, and thank Jeff
The
River
renovation
for getting us together.
I think we took it a little bit for granted when we were actually here. It was just where we went. But the more often I come back here, which is every couple of years, I guess, the more I appreciate the beauty of the building, especially the staircase, the stairwell, which I think is a sensational piece of architecture, the classrooms, the door handles, which are down low because they're for children. The tunnels, I don't know if the tunnels are still used.
No.
No, now you have to walk outside.
Right, well, we already have overhead walkways,
Oh, okay.
skyways, so.
And much better clothing.
But that was such a pleasure to be able to walk to swimming, for example, through the heat tunnel,
Right.
rather than the walking outside.
And to think of the education that we received, that was a real contrast.
It's a real gift, it was a gift to us, for sure.
So the tunnels were warm because that's where the heat.
The steam pipes went through the tunnel.
So,
So
okay,
in the
great.
coldest winter day,
They were more than warm.
yeah, they were hot. And I think they seem really long, even though now, as an adult, I see how distant it is compared to the old library without that very far. Or the Eastman Hall, well, we thought that these are really sensational, like the tunnel under the English Channel.
Well, thank you.
Well,
Great.
it's been
Thank you
fun.
very much.
This is wonderful.
Enjoyed this very much.